Have you ever watched a lighting tutorial and afterwards felt a little bit overwhelmed? I know this feeling all too well. Early on in my career, I would watch other filmmakers with big sets, large crews, and a ton of lights, and remember thinking, there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that. But over the years, I've come to learn that that's actually not true. You can do this too, and I'm gonna show you how by sharing a few tips and tricks that I've picked up over the years that really simplify all of this. And the best part is you don't need a large crew. If you follow some of the tips in this video, you can absolutely do all of this on your own and still get great results when filming yourself, guaranteed. And we're gonna dive right in, but before we do, my name is Ryan, and if you're new with us, welcome. I truly appreciate you being here. Now, truthfully, there is a lot that goes into lighting and cinematography, and I always just recommend to continue on that path of learning as much as you can, because the more that you can understand lighting and film, the easier it gets to simplify some of these processes. However, if you're making a short film or a YouTube video and you're the actor, the writer, the film crew, and all the other things, then this could feel a little bit overwhelming. So I wanted to make this video to show you how to simplify some of these things. But anyway, enough of all that. Let's get into the first tip. And that is the gear, more specifically, of course, for this video, lighting gear. Big setups are a ton of fun, and like I said before, I've used a lot of big setups here on the channel. When I'm doing a cinematography breakdown, I'm trying to teach a certain technique, or when I'm on a bigger film project, like a TV commercial or documentary or a narrative short film or something like that. There is a time and a place for them. But I would also say that when I am trying to move quickly, I'm trying to make a YouTube video really fast, I am honestly a huge fan of small and portable lights. If you've been following me on the channel for some time or follow me over on Instagram, you see me do this all the time with even just one light, one small 60-watt light. It's usually gonna be the X60 from Zhiyun. I really love this light. It's a bicolor RGB light. I've done a whole video on this light, so I'll link that down below if you're interested in learning more about that and how it can be used. But there are also two other lights that I've been really enjoying. I've had them for a few months now, and I've been using them a lot. Those two lights are the C100 and the CF100, made by Zhiyun. These are both 100-watt lights. They are bicolor RGB. They have a ton of internal effects, special effects that you could use like fireworks and lightning and things like that. Both lights come with these barn doors. They have a reflector on one side. You could also take these off and just use it as it is, or you can have them on to direct the light a little bit more. You can hook the C100 up to the ZY Vega app, and you can have full control just from the palm of your hand, which I feel like is super handy when you're filming yourself. Now, I should mention that there are two different price points for both of these lights. Here they are on the screen. If you are a content creator looking to go into traditional filmmaking, like making short films and commercials and things like that, it might be worth picking up the C100 because of its flexibility and being able to connect to the app. You can make content easier by having full control and not having to go back and forth, checking your lighting, checking the camera and all that stuff. But if you need something a little more streamlined, something you can just set up, get the color temperature you need and move on to the next thing, the CF100 is definitely great for that. These are just my opinions though, my personal opinions. Definitely don't go just based off of what I say here in this video. Check these lights out for yourself, but I definitely highly recommend them if you're looking for something that's flexible, portable, lightweight, and you could just use for a multitude of different kinds of video. Zhiyun isn't sponsoring this video, but they did send me these lights to test them out and see what I could do with them. Like I said, I've been using these for a few months now, and I absolutely love them. So definitely check them out if you'd like. I have links down below for everything, and I want to give a huge thank you to Zhiyun. But beyond the gear and the lighting, let's talk a little bit more about some practical techniques. Move on to the next thing, and that is to shoot on the shadow side. Shooting on the shadow side is one of the quickest ways to get a cinematic style image. And one way to do that is to backlight your subject. This makes it super easy because you don't have to think about a whole lot. However, you can just shoot on the shadow side, kind of like what I'm doing right now. I have a key light right next to me. This is just my bounce card with the C100 bouncing back onto me. And then this side is the shadow side. I have the camera a little bit over on this end, shooting this way, and it works out great. The reason this looks cinematic is, one, this is a technique that is often used in Hollywood. I won't say all the time, but I would say most of the time, and that's because this creates a lot of depth. Here's an example of how you could do that. Now, sometimes it makes sense to front light your subject. You don't always have to shoot on the shadow side. Like for example, when I go into the fridge and grab a Topo Chico, you know, I'm front lit because the fridge is lighting my face up, and this makes sense, and that's why it looks fine. It looks good. Plus I added depth in the fridge with some of the objects in there, so that helped out a lot. Let's move on to the next thing, and that is using natural light to your advantage. Knowing how light works in film is gonna go a really long way when you're trying to use natural light to light your scene. And I personally like using natural light to light my scenes as often as I can because it's fast, it's simple, and it's completely free. And that's the thing about natural light. When you walk into a room and you see the way that the light is falling in naturally, then you can motivate all of your studio lighting to match where that light is falling, where those shadows are falling, etc. For example, in this scene, because there's a window right there, all I had to do was set up this little bounce card and this light, and I used the window light to motivate this lighting, so that way it was going in the same direction, same color temperature, and now I'm able to lift those shadows a little bit and it still looks natural. It still looks like it was lit by the window light in the room. Here's a side-by-side of what it looks like without the light and what it looks like with the light. What I love about this is that it's so extremely easy. Starting with just the window light is something that we do when we're going to make a film. That's what the cinematographer will do. We'll walk the room and see how light is coming in naturally and how shadows are falling naturally. But more specifically for YouTube, if you are looking to film yourself and get that cinematic look, this is a really big part of it. Motivating your light with the same color temperature and direction as the ambient light in the room is just a very simple way, but also a super effective way, probably one of the most effective ways to get cinematic lighting in your videos. But let's move on to something that I've been using a lot lately, and that is using color. Using color is a really great way and simple way to set the tone of the scene and even add in a little more depth. There are many techniques and rules when using color, and you can also get as creative as you want with it, but it could be just as simple as creating color contrast and motivating the color within your scene to give it just a little more texture. Let me show you what I mean. Color contrast is when you have opposite sides of the color spectrum together to create depth. For example, teal and orange, this is what is typically used in Hollywood films, and that's because this gives off a lot of depth. And just like highlights and shadows are used to add depth within the image, so are teal and orange, red and green, etc. It's kind of like what I'm doing right now. The walls in my house are a cooler tone. I have my key light at a cooler tone. It's at 5600 Kelvin, but I also have this accent light behind me that's giving off a warm temperature. And to add to that, to give off a little bit of light here and separate me from the background, I actually have the X60 behind me at around that same color temperature. This light wouldn't be enough to light me up in this way, so I added this one light here in the same direction, same color temperature, and it works out really great. It separates me from the background, but it also adds a little bit more depth to this image and just gives it that cinematic style feel. Like I said before, there is a whole lot more that goes into lighting and cinematography, but all of the tips in this video are a surefire way to getting that cinematic look for your videos, a whole lot easier when you're filming all on your own. But the best way to really understand and master all the tips in this video is by doing. So I just want to encourage you to take all these tips and tricks, practice them often, and just get out there and keep making films, because you've got this, friend. Well, that's gonna do for me. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. If you liked this video or you learned something, please click the like button down below. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, friend.